The wormhole is a metaphor from the new physics, which commands attention in any account of the direction in which we are moving in the network domain. Wormholes are found tunneling in quantum foam. A wormhole is a handle in the topology of space, connecting two widely separated locations in our universe, allowing for the rapid transit of particles, and now it's being argued, people, from one layer of reality to another, from one time frame to another, from one galaxy to another, in microseconds or virtually within no time at all. Now, quantum foam may not mean much to us on an everyday level of experience, but tunneling through what might be called data foam from one hyperlinked layer to another, shooting the wormholes from one telepresence to another, from one website to another, actually zapping from one mind to another, and faster than light should allow, is a perfectly reasonable aspiration of us all living and working in this telematic post-biological universe. And for the artist, it's becoming a creative necessity. The Royal Astronomical Society's 1995, is a very current, publication of Some Thoughts on the Implications of Faster Than Light Travel by Ian Crawford gives credence to the idea that wormholes could be stabilized and manipulated to create shortcuts for humans between any 2 points in space, contradicting, of course, Einstein's assertion that because bodies have infinite mass at the speed of light, no amount of energy can make them go faster. Crawford argues that one way is for them to pass through wormholes, which are rifts in the fabric of space caused by intense gravitational fields, such as those found around collapsed stars known as black holes. The reason I mention these wormholes and astrophysics is that I think that at this time we can derive as much value from those metaphors as in the 70s and the early 80s we derive value from the metaphors of quantum physics. And no doubt all read the Dow physics. You all no doubt know how interactivity was first more clearly set out as a premise for the construction of reality in quantum physics than it was in art. Now I think there's time to shift to astrophysics. And this is why I think that we might start with the wormhole to examine what the implications of light are. Because tunneling through wormholes describes behavior at both the macroscopic and microscopic levels, not only in our universe, but of our consciousness as well. Penrose, a physicist at Oxford, has written a book that some of you will no doubt know called Shadows of the Mind, which seeks to locate consciousness in these microtubules, which are little tubes, physical tubes in the brain, where he argues that the collapse of the wavefront, which brings about consciousness and brings about the behavior of particles in quantum physics, is located in these microtubules in the brain. What we're doing as we dig deep into the richly layered data fields is wormholing. What we do as we penetrate deep into the web is wormholing. We wormhole in the brain as we search for new associations and new connections and new meanings. It's a kind of cognitive tunneling. We wormhole too telepathically, and we always have done. Science holds back its formal recognition of the fact as obstinately as it held back from acknowledging the paradoxes of the quantum world. But we networkers know better. Increasingly, the paradigm is changing. This, for example, is reflected in the remarks of Izuo Karubi, I hope I pronounced that Japanese name correctly, a leading-edge technologist at Tokyo University, who says, Kiku Jutsu is now in fashion. This is an Asian discipline which develops the inner energy called Kai. This energy, he says, might possibly be measured by a sensor, perhaps a quantum wave sensor. Now that people's attention is turning towards the inner world, in the developed countries where materialism has reached saturation point, the future of electronics depends on the problems of what sort of approach to take towards the brain, the neurons, and the mind. And at Qinghan University in Peking, research into Qigong, as it's called, seeks to apply extrasensory perception, X-ray vision, and telekinesis to the control of molecular structures, as well as to horticulture, medicine, and the exploration of space. Just as the electronics revolution, which led from telecommunications to the computer, is now taking place in the human brain and extending our conception of mind, so artistically we're moving towards a culture of bioelectronics, cyber spirituality, intelligent architecture, and all the complexity of self-organizing, self-referential, and self-aware systems. We have entered the noetic domain, and consciousness is at the top of our agenda. Electronic art is soon to become bioelectronic art, just as the primary element of our practice, the microchip, is about to become the molecular biochip, and the digital computer is giving away to the neural network. We are moving towards the spiritual in art in ways that Kandinsky could hardly have imagined, as cybernetic systems integrate with psychic systems. But this confers upon us a great responsibility for the kind of worlds that we construct. After being suspended for the last 30 years in a state of postmodern moral weightlessness, we are now subject to the gravity of ethics, and we must find new values and a new morality for this post-biological culture. So the primary issue in art of the next 30 years will be that of consciousness. Intelligent molecules, the chip in the brain, will determine the precise nature of our cultural translation to this noetic culture. Once the interface moves into the brain, once electronic sensors routinely utilize biological elements, once semiconductor devices use living microorganisms, the artificial neural networks will join with our own biological neural networks into a seamless cognitive whole.